And then we're live.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hello, everyone. So good to have you with us. And then people are watching from all over the world, so they kind of start to tune in. So for some people, it's night.
Замечательно. Excellent.
Some people, it's afternoon.
Здорово.
Some people,
Great.
it's morning.
Buenos dias.
And some people, it's just right now.
C'est bon.
C'est bon. And welcome. And we are so glad to be present with you.
Even in the morning.
Yes. This is Bradley Amberheart.
I never show my face before noon.
He's our special guest today. Hello, Patek and Kabita. Where are you from? Everyone, please share where you're from if you feel inspired. We'd love to know where you're joining us from in this exact moment. So, one of the things that we talk about a lot. Welcome, Sylvia. Sylvia's from Germany. One of the things. Welcome, Root. Root is from Denmark.
Oh, that's my name too.
One of the things that we talk about a lot is the value of being present together, and so that's one of the primary things we like to transmit or share with you is a field of presence. Right
I think I have to block out all the comments in order to be present.
It's definitely a talent. Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah, why don't you black out the
you can
I'll
handle
take
the
care of that
comments.
part.
I'll be present.
Yeah, I'll take care of that part. So yeah, that's something we've been talking about, is the space of being present and the value of it and how healing and transformative it is to share together, and the power of silence and how you can actually have silence within a conversation, and that you can have words and ideas and insights emanate from the silence and come back into the silence.
And the birds.
And the birds. Welcome, Patty, MB, Davis, Ashley. Welcome. Vicky, Jolie, welcome. The power of now, for sure. And you've studied with shamans, which I actually like talking to you about more. We haven't talked about it that much.
Oh.
You study with shamans around the world, different places.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it study. I would call it pretty hardcore initiation that involved having water spit in my face and being told I was doing everything wrong. So, yeah, the first myth I would like to dispel is that they're really the only place that shamans exist as part of a culture is in the Tungusk region of Siberia. There's only one country in the world that actually can use the word shaman as a word to refer to themselves. Aside from there, I've actually never met a true medicine person who called themselves a shaman. In North America and in South America, we use the term medicine person, which is a general term, and the word shaman is a general term. It's actually an anthropological term that applies to a variety of different people who do completely different things. So we live in a culture where we think if someone sings, or they drum, or they heal, then they're a shaman. And all of these are different functions. So it's really up to us to define what shamanism is, because we created the word. We borrowed it from the Tungusk region of Siberia. I've been to other regions of Siberia, and no one there calls themselves a shaman. Another major reason not to call yourself a shaman is people have been murdered, killed, and burned in the name of that word. And we use it sparingly. We definitely don't go to Siberia and use the word. Just don't do it.
What does it mean to you? How do you define it, the term?
I would define it as a melding of various functions. In the modern time, given that we literally took this word from another place and recreated what it means, what it actually means now is someone who communes with the unseen realms and brings back knowledge and wisdom from another place, which is not visible to the ordinary eye. So in actuality, there's a lot happening every minute, in addition to the birds that you may be hearing in the background and Brian and me talking. There also is a lot happening that goes beyond what we see. It's sensed with the body, it's felt, and sometimes we see better when we close our eyes. So in shamanic practices, it can be beneficial to actually eliminate this part of the vision so that you can see better. There's a lot to be seen and heard and felt beyond what meets the eye. And when we bring that back, we can actually bring profound insights. It's really about going into an altered state of awareness to retrieve information that normally is not available by watching television or looking at Facebook comments, although this is really a cool means of interface, and this is my shamanic practice, is to bring that wisdom from the other realms back into the world. So now in the modern day, being a shaman might imply using Facebook.
So we think that there's this kind of one reality. Oh, this is reality, this is the way it is, and people get caught in this kind of limited perception, this kind of closed-mindedness, if you will, which comes into a closed-heartedness, and you start to open and expand and you go, oh, there's so many different realities or realms or ways of perception beyond this one limited way of perception that I was conditioned to think that the world is, or the universe is. And it's like almost like expanding your range, right?
Well, I kind of think of it, the thing that comes to mind is music. You know, the reason that we think of music as a part of a shamanic practice is because music actually forces a part of our brain to give up and allows in a different kind of communication that is beyond words. We can feel it in our bodies. In fact, when I visited South Central Siberia, I found that when the people spoke their native language, the Altai language, I understood it. It was a language that was like hearing and feeling a song in my heart. It was beyond syllables, words, and cognitive thought. It was a language that came into you like tones. That's why many languages in the world are tonal, because sound is the carrier of the wisdom, not just cognitive mental shit. Did I say it right?
And it feels like you have really had a journey of delving into authenticity. Like that's one of the things I appreciate the most about you is I think many people do. It's how authentic you are, the space of presence. And I know it's been like a journey for you. It wasn't always that way. So how did you step into this journey of authenticity? What's that been like for you?
Being authentic right now actually means sinking into presence with you without looking at the audience.
Yeah, well then do that.
And then also, what's the first answer that comes to my mind? How does a person sink into a journey of authenticity? I think it's most easily accomplished when you come up against obstacles, and when you come up against people that say you can't do it. People say you can't be that way, it's not allowed, you could be killed. When you grow up facing that kind of existence, you know, I grew up as a queer person in the Deep South in a Southern Baptist town, and I actually give thanks every day for where I grew up and how I grew up, because it forced me to decide, am I going to be authentic? Am I going to do what everyone expects and grow up and go to college and get a real job and get married and build a house and make kids? I mean, authentically, if that felt right, I could be doing that. And yet, there's a lot accessible when we can actually give up, even for a minute, or just consider and allow ourselves to question what is expected of me, and is what is expected of me really what's true to my heart? And it takes a tremendous amount of courage to say, I'm going to risk being ridiculed. I'm going to risk complete failure. I mean, if we talk to the leaders of major corporations or people in our world that are viewed as successful, I think a lot of those people actually had a moment when they had to completely take a huge risk. And for some of us, because of our gender, because of our race, because of our nationality, because of the language we speak, We walk out the door every day, and by being authentic, we take a risk. But the reward is we learn to generate a faith that comes from the core of our heart. It's like a light that vibrates through the world, and literally by carrying our being into the world, we deflect anything that is of harm, and we attract what feeds the fire. People are inspired. We do take risks. Sometimes we're hurt. And more as a result, we become stronger, brighter, clearer, and we choose to surround ourselves with people who really mirror what is of support and nurturance.
There's I actually thought this phrase from the Bible when you're talking, actually. It's something to the effect of, what good does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his own soul? You know? So I think a lot of people are looking for external success, external validation. They're looking, you know, if I get achieve this or do that or get this, then I'll get love from the world or society or the people outside of me. And you know, it ends up being a pretty empty existence ultimately. But if you can, actually, I heard another great quote yesterday. It's from the Bhagavad Gita. It is better to be an honest street sweeper than a dishonest king. Kind of the same principle, you know. Like if you're true to yourself, you live free inside, regardless of what the world or society or people think about you or deem you as. And I think that's the greatest gift of this human journey, if we can access that inside ourselves. And it's like, it's never over. It's like, oh, now I did it. You know, it's because we're always changing and moving and shifting. And I'm making shifts in the past couple of weeks. You know, I was telling them about how I'm not resonating with the term spiritual teacher anymore. And it's like, you know, this is what's happening now. Am I going to be authentic to that or not, you know? So to keep living like true and authentic to the moment is an ongoing adventure that requires being present and definitely courage at times.
Yeah, it's not like we can live by the vision that we had yesterday.
Right.
Because the vision we had yesterday, what we once called a dream, is the reality that we're living now. And we could continue to repeat that over and over, but we're already planting the seeds for the dream that's coming in. What worked 6 months ago doesn't work anymore, and I think that's been the hardest thing, one of the hardest things for me in my journey, is everything is constantly shifting and changing. We've got to be malleable. Being near water really helps me embrace fluidity, although I live in a place with great trees and deep old mountains. There's lots of water falling. When I go up there and it's foggy and it surrounds and caresses my body, all that water in the air, then I feel so much better.
And I think for me too, when you can realize this essence of yourself that's unchanging, it allows you to paradoxically like be in the flow of the temporal, or the form of time and place. Time and space and place. Yeah, that's really, you feel anchored. You can anchor there inside yourself.
Да, конечно, хочется петь песенки сейчас, потому что, когда я пою в иностранном языке, не понимаете, а только звуки слушайте. You only hear the sounds, even though I was singing in a real language called Russian. You feel the sounds more. I mean, I'm standing here wanting to have a desire to sing and move. I don't know how long Brian's going to have me standing in front of this camera. But, hey, I was going to say, we have this idea that people could have more gatherings where the rule is you walk in the door, and from the minute you walk in until the time you leave, no one actually says a word in any language. It's all sound and movement and communication. Wouldn't that be cool? You know, do you ever get tired of those cocktail parties?
So, what do you do?
Yeah, how was your day? How was your day? How are you?
Yeah, let's just skip all that.
Yeah, I mean, come on, like, look at me. Can you see? What do I do? What am I?
What do you do? What do you do?
Who's in there? I like looking in people's eyes, and the more of us who do that with each other, the more things are going to shift.
Yeah. Yeah, that is we're having these ideas of gatherings that are wordless, nonverbal. Doesn't mean you can't make sound, but they're non-verbal spaces to gather and connect. So look for those coming to a town near you soon.
Mm-hmm.
And then the point about that, like everything changing, and then people are looking for stability in the wrong places. They're looking for stability in things that are constantly changing: relationship, work, the mind, ideas, beliefs, emotions. And I think when we can just anchor in this essence of ourselves and just recognize that we're not going to find stability in these outer forms, material or mental or emotional, but just allow the movement and the flow of these forms, and recognize that it's not always easy, but recognizing that ultimately they're all coming from the one divine infinite light.
I might add one thing about stability.
Yes, please.
There is a place I feel great stability, and that is when I go into the forest and I sit near rocks and trees. I mean, if you live in California, Chile, anywhere in the Pacific Rim, even the earth moves all the time. And yet, many of us can at least find a place where there's solid rock, there are trees. Oh wait, except if you live in South Florida. Gosh, I used to live there. And I found my stability by hanging in the trees. I called it tree yoga. You pull on the mangrove limb and you pull up, and then you become part of the tree. It's there are some things that are more constant. I knew a tree standing in the edge of the ocean at the western end of Key West, and that tree is still there. It's rooted in rocks, even through hurricanes. I find great inspiration in that. For all that's shifting and changing, going to a place in nature, even if you live in the middle of New York City, go to a tree that's been there 100, 150 years. They actually are everywhere. There's even a place at the northern tip of Manhattan in Inwood where there's a park that was actually never developed. It's a piece of land that's been left that way. You can find amazing places, and when you ask to find them, they come, and people show you where they are. A little fairy in New York showed me where that forest was. He had long hair, and he looked like Rasputin.
Yeah, the wisdom of the old tree.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, those that have gnarled roots and branches, and gosh, they have a soul,
Yeah.
You can only see them when you're walking slow. You don't see them in your car. You don't see them from the bus or the subway. You just take a slow stroll.
You don't see them when you're thinking about next week.
That's the truth. Yeah.
Or how that person cut you off in traffic a few hours ago.
Totally. And just standing here talking about it, I feel the soul of those trees. The other amazing thing is, once you connect with the soul of a tree or a mountain or a sacred place, no matter where you go, you can connect with that. You don't actually have to go back to the spot. It's in your heart, in your soul. You're a part of it. Close your eyes, take a nap, dream, hold your lover, and revisit those places. They're always accessible. That's the magic of living in multiple dimensions. When you're in a place of presence, you are connected with everywhere and everyone and all the love that you've ever experienced in the world. It's true, and I know it to be true, and I can testify that it's true. Just when you're making love, remember and reconnect with all the beautiful places you've ever been. They're all still here. Even if they no longer exist in physical reality, the essence is still there, and the medicine that it gave you is still alive in your heart and in your body. I think that's what they call shamanism. Like, oh yeah, I went on a transcendental journey and I was in Mexico and Hawaii at the same time. Like, people talk about that like it's the future. But in reality, it is possible when you let go enough of your mind and your conditioning, you can be in multiple places at once. And we think it means, oh yeah, my body's going to disappear and rematerialize in India. Mm-hmm. And I do believe there are people who can do that. But as a starter, even from this room without rematerializing in India, I can touch it. I can touch it from here. I feel it. It's more than faith, it's a knowing, and I can feel all the sensations of being in a place. I mean, I have to say the first time I felt that, I was stoned in Alaska. I don't smoke pot anymore because it just brings me down. Yeah.
It's like multiple timelines all happening right now, and like when you expand your consciousness, where you can access them in different spaces. And I like this line from Vicky here. Be a branch, be flexible or snap. That's a good wisdom from a tree. Yeah. So you mentioned making love and how it can like bring you to different places.
Wait, I'm still thinking about snapping.
Snap.
Oh yeah, I want to talk about making love too, but snap, it's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, like you have to prune your garden, and sometimes it feels like a part of us just completely broke off. I mean, I have this sensation often of pieces of me falling apart and having to put it back together, and yet ultimately there are certain things in our lives that drain us and certain things that empower us, and there's certain times for parts to go back to the earth. And it can be really hard, but if we really are true and faithful, true and present with the path that we're on, we're going to recognize that even the things that are falling away are part of the opening and the awakening. And I actually think that's another aspect of shamanism. There always are going to be things that are having to be torn apart and put back together. I mean, I must have died 10 times in this lifetime.
This morning.
Did I? Did you see me die?
Yeah. A few times.
I must look like death. So, yeah, you were going to ask about traveling to ecstatic places through ecstatic
Yeah, you can
connection.
direct the energy. You can open up potential energy and then direct it almost like a prayer, right? You've done some workshops on this.
You can, and actually, physiologically, what happens is your lower chakras, your genitals, and your butt are actually generators. The word generator is related to genitals. So that energy often stays down there. Sometimes it comes up here a little bit, but lots of times it just goes out or into your partner, when in reality you and your partner can collaborate in raising that energy to higher places in your body. Your spine is the highway, and it carries that energy from your lower chakra centers into your heart. My favorite that I actually have been experimenting with this week, I don't know why, is to bring it all the way up your back, up your spine, and over the top of your head into your vision center. You can also bring it up the front. Now, when I say bring it up, it may sound hokey pokey or woo woo, but what I'm actually really talking about is you have a physical spine and a spinal cord that has neurotransmitters directly from your genitals to your brain. And I once heard a brilliant recording by Osho, which was called the Tantra Vision, and he said, I surely believe that, I'm paraphrasing, okay, I surely believe that humanity lost a tremendous amount of intelligence when we began to think that sex was sinful or wrong. And then he went on to imply that people became dumber because they weren't getting enough energy from their lower chakra centers to their brain. This is your third eye, it's where you can see. So literally close your eyes and allow that energy to surge up your spine. You have to keep your spine upright, or not too hunched over. Like keep your spine aligned, breathe, move, make sound, and visualize energy from lower to top. Gosh, I just gave a whole lesson there in 30 minutes. I'm sorry if I talk too long.
No, it's good stuff.
We can do more about that.
You want to totally. There's obviously a lot more to share on that. But you want to be in the flow, from like root chakra, the crown chakra, have the energy flowing through, and you can be. I mean, the intention would be to be in that state all the time. Ideally, just walking down the street,
exactly,
being in this flow of energy, because this is, you say, the generator energy, and also say it's the creative energy, right? So when we're cut off from the lower chakras, we don't have any creative energy.
Yeah,
and we're disempowered.
And we can do it all the time. It's just that lovemaking is a really fun time when a lot of energy is generated. But then once we open those centers, we can find ourselves feeling in love with the trees,
an old tree,
with the sunshine. Being in love is not, I feel, not about necessarily latching onto another person. It's really about feeling the essence of life coursing through our bodies. It feels really good to be in love. It's a state of being. And when we learn to do that by walking out the door and breathing and hearing, then we will attract other people that we really enjoy being with.
That's beautiful. Yeah, love yourself. Love all the parts of yourself. All the aspects of yourself, even the parts. I think that's such a great part of this journey of authenticity. Even the parts that you think are bad, or you think are unholy, or you think are whatever you think they are, they're parts of existence, and they're parts of the divine union of all things, to be embraced and loved, and allows the energy to flow through you. Then
you mean even if I get impatient waiting in line and I snap at somebody and say a really nasty word, is that still wonderful too?
Yeah, I think the key there is the more you practice this presence and embracing these parts of yourself, and you can say like, you don't have to say it with words, but just, I notice I'm feeling impatient. Somehow it kind of diffuses the energy.
Right, be the
Yeah.
observer.
Yeah, yeah. But if you resist the impatience, it actually aggravates it more. You know. So yeah, you'll do that. Like with our communication relationship, you'll do that with me more sometimes. You'll just say, "I notice I'm feeling this,"
Right.
and it kind of diffuses it, as opposed to letting it build up and foster, fester.
Right.
Whatever the word is.
That's a magic tool for living in community. You know, we're experimenting, growing, and learning. What's it like to live near someone that may hold somewhat different values than you, or value different things different times of day? Like, some people love to create at midnight. I like to create at 10:30 in the morning with a cup of coffee, and I don't want to see anybody. But then there's this magic place where those people meet. What do? You say, well, Brian, right now I'm having a sensation that my body wants to just really be quiet, and I would so love to talk to you later. Right now I just feel like I need to hide my face.
To be able to communicate that, to be able to recognize what you're feeling and communicate it. I mean, that's such an essential element of relating, authentic relating, that I think that people are.
Vicky says that one of us is saying what she's thinking.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, we are one brain.
One consciousness.
I was on a retreat last weekend, a Tantra retreat, and I noticed different people in the group were speaking different parts of the brain. Like, if one of us cognitively couldn't figure out the rationale, somebody else, like the brain, the little electric impulses would go to that person and they would speak for the group. And then if one of us needed the more creative surge for the group, then the electric impulses would come to us. It's like the group becomes a body.
That's what I'm most excited about, is this unified resonant field. When we come together, I think that's what we're here as human beings to open up to, is this feeling of being one organism, in this one unified consciousness. And what we can do, what we can create, is so much exponentially more powerful than we're caught up in our own little, isolated, separate sense.
But it's scary. Story. It's scary because, we feel like we might lose ourselves.
To gain something greater.
And then we become just not so much of an individual, but we're a part of a whole. Right. But then we still have a particular function which changes at different times, so we do have an individual expression.
I think it's particularly important in this culture too, in Western culture, because we're so caught up in this illusionary sense of a separate self, of this isolation of the individual. The individual has some value, but we've just lost the sense of connection to community in the deepest sense of the word.
Yeah.
Community with other people, but even community with the trees, community with the sky, community with the earth, community with the forest, community with these different aspects of ourselves. And when we come into communion, we access this greater power than we ever had, and this sense of separation within.
Yeah, maybe we can do one of these Facebook Live discussions outdoors soon.
Yes.
You have to be in a place though where you get 4G or LTE.
4G.
Or LTE. That doesn't happen in my sacred place up on the mountain. That's why I go there exactly, because nobody's phone works.
We need 4G for unified resonant field.
Well, there was a meeting point of the beautiful gift of technology. And we're discovering that right now, every minute.
Yeah. Beautiful. I think we're at a resting point.
It feels that way, and the last comment is still Vicky saying, "You're saying what I'm thinking." I think.
Oh, does anyone have any comments they'd like to share before we part? That's a good thing to ask. Any comments or questions before we roam into the next now moment? This is a great opportunity just to be present together. Thank you all so much. Thank you so much. And we'll see you on the next Now.